Thank you. Now it's Karl's turn. Karl Andrus from the Hamilton Community Benefits Network.
Can you hear me all right?
I can, sir.
All right. So my name is Karl Andrus. I'm representing the Hamilton Community Benefits Network. We are part of the Just Recovery Hamilton Collective. We support the recommendations set out by the collective, some of which I will speak to today. I want to thank the mayor, staff, and members of this council for the hard work you've all done in these unprecedented times. The COVID-19 pandemic is having a profound impact on residents all across our city. It is with the thought of these unprecedented times in mind that the Just Recovery Hamilton Coalition came together to place before you the 150 or so recommendations. Although every recommendation in the document is important, and the document by no means includes every possible voice or perspective, we felt as a collective that our recovery from this pandemic will require exceptional action from this council and our broader community. I want to focus on a few key recommendations from our organization's perspective towards improving the lives of residents of Hamilton, especially in regards to addressing unemployment, precarious employment, and the profound effect the pandemic has had on women, racialized folks, and other frontline heroes who have borne the brunt of the pandemic. I want to talk about a couple of key policies that the city could be implementing. One is a social procurement policy that the city of Toronto has had in place for many years now. COVID-19's economic effects have been devastating, especially for small businesses in the service sector, restaurants, small retail, and other businesses. As one of the largest employers with almost 9,000 employed, an annual budget of almost $1 billion, and nearly $16 billion worth of hard infrastructure assets, the city of Hamilton is in a strong position to take a lead on just recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. Social procurement is the achievement of strategic social, economic, and workforce development goals using an organization's process of purchasing goods and services. Through its procurement and purchasing structure, the city is in a position to affect broad social, economic, and workforce development changes. And of course, community benefits agreements can be used by the city of Hamilton to create commitments between developers, the city, and a coalition of community organizations. These arrangements allow for innovative and creative ways to address a broad range of community needs with safeguards to ensure that affected residents share in the benefits of major developments. CBAs have used it successfully across North America to make real change in the environment and economic lives of residents. COVID-19 presents an opportunity for community benefits agreements to be used to redress many of the challenges facing the city in a post-pandemic recovery. I also cannot stress enough the need for outdoor spaces and mobility justice as a way to get around our city. I know others in this call have touched on that, but I cannot understate the need for a place for all Hamilton residents to exercise, socialize, and move safely across the city and participate in social outings. They cannot be understated as we meet with the need for social distancing in these difficult times. No conversation on inclusive city building can begin without acknowledging the massive issues of food insecurity that many residents of the city of Hamilton faced before the pandemic. This insecurity has only been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Food prices are increasing dramatically, unemployment, raising rent, inadequate government supports such as CPP, Ontario Works, ODSP, and the Guaranteed Income Supplement for our retirees have all added to the effects of food security felt across the city. Food banks were struggling before the crisis to keep up with growing demands. And I cannot understate enough how it is imperative that this council use any measures possible within its purview to address that. We cannot afford to return to the pre-COVID-19 normal. Normal wasn't working. Times of great challenge in the past have afforded opportunities for broad-reaching social change. The city bounced back and thrive after faced with the mammoth challenges of the 1918-1919 pandemic and the Second World War. A just recovery for Hamilton must focus on communities in the city that have experienced the disproportionately negative impacts of the pandemic. We cannot meet the deep inequity and hidden challenges of the current pandemic with fear and austerity. Together, we can build back better. I can make myself available for any questions this council might have on the Just Recovery Policy document. I may not be able to answer questions on all 150 items, but I'd certainly be keen to talk about mobility justice, investing in decent jobs, decent wages in our local economy, as well as a focus on inclusive city building. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Andrus. Are there any members of council with questions for Karl? I have a question. If I could hand over the chair to Councillor Clark.
Please proceed, Councillor.
Thank you. Karl, I was wondering if you could speak to me about the relationship between mobility justice and economic justice, please.
Karl?
I can certainly touch on it a little bit. How we get around a city says a lot about us, and how we support people getting around the city, making sure that there's an equal playing ground in mobility, directly affects the economic justice of a city. Being able to get somewhere, whether it's to a place of employment, whether it's to a doctor's office, or whether it's to your ability to just get to your local grocery store. All of these contribute in a variety of ways in bettering the economic reality of folks across the city. And we cannot afford to continue the trends that are currently existing in our massively overbuilt infrastructure that focuses strictly on cars as a way to get around the city. And although I will applaud this council investment in cycling infrastructure and other infrastructures around the city, I can't understate, as others have today in presenting this council, the need for things like clear sidewalks, accessible public transit, as ways to not only access employment, as ways to get to school, but ways to contribute to everyday normal life in ways that may not be afforded to the same equality as those folks who are lucky enough to have a car in the city.
Councillor?
Thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you, Karl. I'll take back the chair. Thank you, Councillor Clark. I don't see any further questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Andrus, for your time this afternoon and your contribution.